Hi, I'm Peter Brown and I worked with Thomas Brodhead on this series of videos. You might have heard that Tom died in May of 2024. The last work he did after receiving the diagnosis was a revision of the Fourth Symphony score to clarify two areas in the 2020 publication. And he also took the opportunity to correct a few small errors that had been spotted in the score and parts. These have been rectified in the rental materials that are supplied by AMP Schirmer, but there are 6 which affect the 2020 published edition of the performance score. I'll point them out one by one. In movement 1, measure 15, violin 2, there should be a slur under beats 2 and 3. In movement 2, measures 191 through 193, in violins 1 and 2, these should be full slurs, not dotted. Shortly after, in movement 2, measure 207, the extra violin 2, the B natural should be a C natural, but note that the parts have always been correct here. Also in movement 2, measure 263 in the viola, there should be a unison marking at the start of the measure. In movement 3, measures 76 and 77 in the bass, the staccato dot should be at the end of the tie. And finally, in movement 4, measure 28 in the cello, the F natural in the lower voice should be a G natural. This is also incorrect in the critical edition. The manuscript is unequivocal here. And again, please note that the parts have always been correct. So, on to the 2 clarifications in the revised edition. The first affects the clarinets in the collapse section in the second movement, measures 43 through to the third quarter beat of measure 46. In Ives's fair copy of the score, the triplet figures appear in the register here, but marked ottava all the way across, clearly to imitate the razzing of the train passengers as they whiz past the pilgrims in the Celestial Railroad story, putting their thumbs on their noses and twiddling their fingers to make fun of the pilgrims, and so on. But the copyist who made the next iteration of the score missed the ottava instruction, and so when it was premiered in 1927 and then published in 1929, it appeared an octave lower. Ives apparently missed the copyist's mistake, and we can only conjecture whether he noticed it in the 1927 performance. It then became the tessitura of the clarinets in the 1965 edition, where it remained inaudible for decades. Here is that passage from the 1965 score in a performance by Andrew Litton and the Dallas Symphony in 2006. The 2020 edition restored the original octave of the clarinets, making the razzing audible for the first time. But this made all the other instruments inaudible, including the trills of the flutes and the large triplets of the piccolo, even when the clarinets played the indicated initial mezzo-piano dynamic for the figure. Here is the restored passage performed by Andrew Davis and the Melbourne Symphony in 2017. The revised edition writes the triplet figures in between the tutti chords in the lower octave, but with an optional ottava for each figure. The interpreter is therefore encouraged to try it both ways, loco and ottava, and choose whichever version makes better musical sense. This is, of course, also notated in the parts. The second clarification affects the piccolos, flutes and clarinets in the fourth movement, measures 30 and 31. Ives sketched out the starting notes of these instruments, which double the solo piano, but didn't complete the passage. The 2020 edition completed the passage, but with a problem Ives likely didn't anticipate. The first flute overwhelms the upper notes, obscuring the "Nearer my God to thee" quote in the piccolo, and all the winds here drown out the solo piano as well. Let's listen to that passage in this 2019 recording by Michael Tilson Thomas and the San Francisco Symphony. The revised edition marks the piccolo, flutes and clarinets as optional for this passage, with two solutions suggested here. 1. Have the first flute play its measures an octave lower than written, so there's no competition with the piccolo. Or 2. Eliminate the flutes and clarinets entirely in those measures, but possibly retain the piccolo as it duplicates the quotation in the solo piano, but without the danger of drowning it out. And this is also reflected in the parts. Ives' scholarship owes much to Thomas Brodhead, and it's through his tireless work on making the Fourth Symphony accessible that it can be interpreted with such freedom today. He was also very proud of his editions of The Celestial Railroad and the 4 transcriptions from Emerson, which were published in 2022 in Charles Ives' Shorter Works for Piano, Volume 3, which is part of the Ives Society Critical Edition. For all that you've done on behalf of Ives and his Fourth Symphony in the field of music engraving, and for being my friend. Thanks, Tom.